In 2016, Aston Villa's 28-year stay in England's top flight would finally come to an end. But what if you go back to that year's FM? Is it possible to avoid relegation? And we've gone back nearly a decade. This was a catastrophic season for the Midlands club as they finished at the foot of the Premier League. This team was objectively bad, sitting in 20th place for 26 match weeks in a row. Their minus 49 goal difference is also the ninth worst in Premier League history, as they routinely got beaten badly. In 38 league games, they would win only 3 matches all season. Brad Guzan would play 28 of those between the posts and concede 58 times, or one every 43 minutes. Similarly, the form of Micah Richards was a disappointment too. Of the 24 matches he played in their league campaign, he would taste victory just once, as over the year his playing time diminished further and further. But there is some reason to be optimistic. A decade ago, Jack Grealish was just beginning to emerge from Aston Villa's academy, already showing plenty of impressive technical attributes. He's going to have a big role for the season ahead. Likewise with Jordan Ayew. In the summer of 2015, Villa would spend 9 million to bring the Ghanaian forward across from Lorient in France. He'd be one of their few shining stars that year, scoring 7 goals in 30 games. With the likes of Rudy Gestede and Scott Sinclair impotent in front of goal, and Gabiak Bonlahor failing to hit double figures since 2010, there's a lot of pressure on Ayew to guide us to safety. Elsewhere, this is a squad with obvious limitations. A good number of our starters simply aren't good enough for this level of competition. On the bench, there isn't really much quality either. And when we were inevitably chasing games this year, I don't think they're going to offer much in attack. Let's play through the season though and see what happens. And match day 1 is upon us. It couldn't be much more difficult, facing the challenge of reigning champions Chelsea. Favouring a 4-4-1-1, we're looking to be defensively solid and hit them on the counter, which would pay dividends early. Carlos Gil finds Grealish in the middle for his first ever league goal. Colombian forward Falcao would spend a single season on loan with Chelsea. He would have a torrid time, scoring just once in 12 matches. Despite Chelsea's relentless pursuit of a winner, they were wasteful in front of goal. We would leave Stamford Bridge with a point in hand. 2 weeks later, and we'd secure our first league victory of the campaign. Veretout laying it off perfectly for Ayew, who scores a brace. Full of confidence, and with 5 points out of a possible 9, we were sitting comfortably in the upper half of the standings. But with Arsenal coming to town, our difficult opening continues. Once again, we would prioritise our defensive stability and look to hit the Gunners on the counter-attack. Again, Ayew only needs a glimpse of goal. Our lead would last little more than a minute. Bakuna, no more use than a training cone, and Walcott shows up at the back post. With an injury to Aaron Ramsey, Arsenal were down to 10 for the final minutes. We pushed forward, seeking the win. Guzan parries wide, and Oxlade-Chamberlain gets the winner. Whilst that was a bitter pill to swallow, overall things are going reasonably well. Up in 7th with 8 points from 5 matches, we've already stretched a little bit of distance from us and the drop. With newly promoted Watford making the trip north, for the first time this season, we're going to try and play more offensive, deploying a 4-2-3-1. During the 15-16 season, Odion Ighalo was an absolute force for Watford, scoring 15 Premier League goals in 37 matches. But it would be Holebas who scored the opener. Seeking an equaliser, we adopted a more direct approach. Ayew finds space and looks to beat his man in the area. Penalty. But it would be disastrous, and that would be a theme all season as we miss 50% of our spot kicks. And that particular miss was very costly. It would end with a 1-0 home defeat. We've hit a bit of a blip, securing just 1 point out of the last 9. Hosting real-life champions Leicester wasn't going to be easy either. Not only do they possess the likes of Vardy and Mahrez, in the centre of the park is one of the best midfielders in the league, N'Golo Conte. 14-15 season, Jordan Ayew would score 12 goals, securing Lorient's safety in Ligue 1 as they narrowly avoided relegation. Trailing with 70 minutes played, we looked to fight our way back into the game. Jordan Ayew would answer the call. With Leicester looking to regain parity, they attack high up the field. Grealish clips it through, and the Ghanaian secures his hat-trick in a 3-1 victory. That was the high point. The coming weeks would be our first low. In the league games ahead, we'd lose 5 and draw twice. In those games, being outscored by our opponents 4 goals to 15. Any defensive stability we'd shown during the opening weeks was rapidly disappearing. As we approached the midway point, the table wasn't looking very pleasant reading anymore. Having lost to the likes of West Brom and Sunderland in recent weeks, we are now just 2 points clear of the drop zone. With very limited resources in the transfer market, we've had to be prudent bringing in new signings. Serge Gnabry joins on loan from Arsenal. For 250 grand, we've also managed to acquire Alex from AC Milan. With the likes of Kieran Clark, our only backup option in defence, the Brazilian should offer plenty of Premier League experience when we call upon him. And it wouldn't take long for our new signings to make an impact. Our FA Cup campaign would begin against Millwall. Ayew would score our second. After a late capitulation in London, it would take a second leg to decide the winner. Micah Richards puts a perfect ball into the centre. Later in the second half, we'd secure our passage to the 4th round. A perfect piece of control, and what a finish. Would set up a mouth-watering tie against our fiercest rivals. A decade ago, Birmingham would have a pretty forgetful campaign, finishing 10th in the Championship under Gary Rowett. It would take Carlos Hill nearly 6 months to score his first goal for the club. But what a time to get it. With 6 minutes remaining, a historic victory was on the cards. That was until a massive defensive lapse in concentration at the back. Once again, the tie would need a second leg to decide the winner. Ayew again steps up to the mantle and opens the scoring. Minutes later, Lescott secures the win. Our prize for victory, a 5th round home tie against bottom of the Championship, Huddersfield Town. With the scores tied at 1-1, we look to win it at Villa Park. Wells runs through Richards and Hutton like they aren't even there. We are eliminated. And that disappointment would transfer into our league form. Defeats to Palace, Watford, Leicester, Man United and West Ham pushed us further down the table. One really disappointing performer for us so far this season is Idrissa Gueye. In reality, he was basically ever present for the Villains over the course of the 15-16 season, but we just haven't been able to replicate his form at all. Fortunately, Jordan Veretout has been in impressive form in the centre of the park. His solitary goal at the Stadium of Light earned us a rare win. With the season rapidly drawing to a close, we faced another relegation 6-pointer against local rivals West Bromwich Albion. In reality, they would comfortably avoid relegation, placing 14th in the Premier League. Solomon Rondon would prove invaluable as he found the back of the net 9 times for the club. It would only take 10 minutes for the Venezuelan to make a big impact. He meets the ball with a great header. Again, the South American is involved in the build-up before another calamitous piece of defending by us in the middle. It would finish 2-1 to West Brom. Our penultimate match day of the year would end in a similar disastrous result. A brace by IU couldn't help us as we lost 4-2 to Stoke. With 37 matches played, we were in a lot of trouble. Having picked up just 5 points out of a possible 24 in our last 8 matches, we have to win our final home game. And whilst hoping that we can beat Swansea, Sunderland need to do us a massive favour against Southampton. And speaking of a massive favour, it would be a wonderful time for Rudy Gested to score his first league goal of the year. Inside 15 minutes, it would be our frailties exposed again. Boval running off his marker at the near post, and what a finish. But we would strike back almost instantly. And whilst Rudy wouldn't get on the score sheet, he would make an impact. Ayew steps up confidently and converts his 4th penalty of the year. That would be enough to secure us victory. But before we get to the table, here are our full season stats for the campaign. One area where we really benefited was having a lot of stability in defence and in goal. For the majority of the season, we were able to deploy the same back 5. One player who really impressed me was Jordan Veretout. In a box-to-box role, he was combative and creative, scoring 3 and setting up 6 in the league. On the other hand, one of the more disappointing performers has to be Carlos Gil. At the beginning of the season, he was played relentlessly as our 10, but a single goal in 27 appearances was an abysmal return. One player whose goal return can't be described as awful was Premier League Golden Boot winner Jordan Ayew. He would prove to be a thorn in the side of opponents, as he averaged a goal once every 128 minutes. Jack Grealish would also rank in the top creators in the league with 11 assists. But where did we finish in the table? Well, thanks massively to Sunderland, we would avoid relegation on the final day on goal difference. We would secure 22 more points, score 17 more goals, and concede 16 less than Villa did in reality. Remarkably, we would actually pick up more points on the road than at Villa Park, as I found it a massive struggle to beat many of the teams at the lower end of the table. Whilst we did enjoy that great opening to the year, battling for the European spots after 10 games, the second half of the season was absolutely brutal. In 2016, Aston Villa's relegation would fire them down to the second tier. Now under the stewardship of Unai Emery, that must seem a distant memory as they look to compete in the Premier League and maybe capture their first European trophy since 1982.